The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar today, Smartsheet sponsoring Streamlining Data Importation into Smartsheet. My name is Jim O'Farrell. I'm Director of Product Marketing here at Smartsheet, and I'd like to welcome you, whether you're here in North America, Europe, or staying up late in Asia Pacific to listen to this webinar. Okay, so without any further ado, what I'd like to do is now just do some quick introductions. We have with us today Brian Vaughn, who's a Senior Implementation Manager with Beckman Coulter. Brian's got 10 plus years of experience in field service, 15 years of experience in multiple aspects of the healthcare industry, very adept at analytics, process improvement strategies, and it's a real pleasure to have you here, Brian, today. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you.
Secondly, we also have Bruce Warren. Bruce is a clinical trial data analyst with Karyopharm, and Bruce specializes in the same kinds of areas in terms of analytics and process improvements. He also specializes in visualizations and coding, and I'd like to also welcome Bruce to our webinar today.
Thanks, great to be here.
Good to have you. And then finally, Brett Gardner. Brett is our technical sales engineering leader. He is here to share a lot of great insights into Data Uploader and the practical aspects of this solution. Brett, how you doing?
Doing well, Jim. Thanks for having me, everyone.
Good to have you all here. Now, I just want to point out, there was not a requirement to have a first name that began with BR to join this webinar here, but somehow that's how it all worked out. And then, of course, like myself, Jim O'Farrell, Director of Product Marketing here at Smartsheet. Real quickly, agenda today. We're going to spend maybe about 8 to 9 minutes. I want to just walk you through, do kind of a simple introduction of what Data Uploader is, and give you some ideas and thoughts around why we did this particular solution, what problems it addresses, some of the high-level information about Data Uploader, and then you'll see at the conclusion here, as you can see, a 15-minute at the end, a Data Uploader technical demonstration that Brett Gardner will deliver. Brian will be covering with Beckman Coulter. He's going to be talking a lot about their equipment delivery data management processes and the critical role that Data Uploader plays there. And then Bruce will cover from a different angle, clinical trial data management and the role that Data Uploader plays there. We thought it would be good to get some perspective from different customers because this is quite a flexible tool. This will give you just some, again, ideas and innovations that you might be able to apply to your business world. As I mentioned, again, Q&A anytime. Please feel free to ask any questions. Use the GoToWebinar Q&A panel, and we can go from there. So that's it for the housekeeping. Let's go ahead and get started. So Data Uploader. Data Uploader is a premium application. What it does for you, it allows you to bring data from virtually any system outside of Smartsheet and bring that data into Smartsheet. The mechanism that that allows us to make a statement like that is that it supports CSV, separated value file formats, and or I should say, or Excel file formats. And everyone, I should be aware of the ubiquity, if you will, of those particular file formats. I can think of my background working with SAP. SAP, for example, in material management, finance management, vendor management, customer management, any of those modules, there's always the ability to export data from SAP into a .xls or a .csv format. And you can apply that across the board to these other logos here, for example, NetSuite, QAD, and so on. So the idea behind this is to not only connect from one particular system of record, if you will, but provide an environment that allows you to pull from multiple systems of record and converge that into the Smartsheet environment. And then from there, of course, you have the ability to do reporting, dashboards, and so on. So when we get into the technical demo, you're going to be able to see this live and in action. And of course, the value of all that is, getting access to that data, reporting on that data, better decisions, faster decisions, which is one of our credos here, if you will, at Smartsheet. Let's drill into this a little bit further. This kind of gets me excited when I see this kind of a framework here. If you can see over on the upper left, check out all the various different ERP logos that support this kind of a file format and file transfer environment. There's a lot of big names in there, and there's also names that you don't hear every day that support that, even from a CRM, SAP CRM, Salesforce. We look at LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol Systems, databases, SQL Server, MySQL, Forms, project management solutions. All of those environments you can imagine using Data Uploader from an export capability, exporting that into an Excel, CSV, or Google Sheets format, and then pushing that out to cloud storage, and with Data Uploader, having this mechanism to, on a batch basis, on a time delimited basis, making that information available to Smartsheet. Now, here's the cool thing here that I like, coming from the control center world, is that not only can you update existing Smartsheet sheets with this data, but you could even use this kind of a uploader capability to populate control center intake sheets. So this is a great mechanism to, again, pull data from disparate sources and provide those into our particular environment. I'm getting a message here that my microphone keeps cutting out. Let me see if I can just speak a little bit closer to the speaker here, and hopefully that mitigates that problem. Thanks, Jack, for pointing that out. Let's continue. One of the mechanisms, of course, or one of the approaches that we have as another one of our tenets to Smartsheet usage is we want our solutions, our tools, our premium applications to be as easy as they possibly can be to use. And I think you're going to see with Brett's demonstration today, you're going to really see how straightforward it is to set up your source for your data, how do you set up your timings, the scheduling for this information, the mapping of the fields, and so on. It's pretty much a configurable point and shoot type of approach to this. There's no sort of scripting or programming required. And again, this idea of what are some of the problems that we're trying to solve here? I think it really boils down to data quality. It's all about making sure that we can automate the updating, the entry of information. By automating it, we eliminate the manual nature, which has got two problems with it, of course. One is it's time consuming. Who's got extra hours in their day to be re-entering data manually? And number two is because of that manual nature, it's typically very error prone, and those errors can result in incorrect decisions being made based on those reports and dashboards that are connected to those data entry mechanisms. So Data Uploader really eliminates that repetitive nature of exporting, copying, and pasting, and more importantly, provides it on a programmatic scheduled basis. And I think when we take a look at the various different benefits of this, it's pretty clear. I don't need to, beat this into the ground. It really just absorbs and makes the information much more visible. We're reducing time. We're saving errors. And I think what you're going to hear from our next speaker here, when Brian speaks about this, is this connection of pulling multiple sources of information and providing a cohesive view of that information in single dashboards. You're also going to see that in Brett Gardner's demonstration, where he shows various different sources of information and that merging, if you will, into a single dashboard. So uniting, if you will, disparate platforms is a real key capability of this. So without further ado, I would like to now turn it on over to Brian Vaughn, Senior Implementation Manager with Beckman Coulter. Brian's going to talk a little bit about the challenges that they faced before implementing Data Uploader, and then walk us through 2 or 3 examples of how Data Uploader is assisting them. Brian, you ready to go?
I am. Thanks, Jim.
You bet.
So I just wanted to take a quick, brief overview of one of our applications of Data Uploader here at Beckman Coulter. One of the challenges we were having is understanding the current status and availability of our inventory across multiple geographies and planners for these units that are located in different countries and different parts of the country as well. So we were having multiple phone calls and emails just trying to get updates on the availability of our inventory, and found out that Data Uploader could help bring this data all together in a very systematic way to help us not have to spend so much manual time trying to manipulate the data and trying to understand what our status was. So Jim, we can move on. So what we envisioned with Data Uploader was that we could take data that was available to us, but in a very unfriendly manner, that resided in different SQL databases, and use Data Uploader to filter that data, bring it together, and break it down by specific geographies. So Data Uploader helped us on a daily basis take a very simple file structure, analyze it, place it into geography-specific sheets within Smartsheet. And from that, we had then been able to harness the power of dashboards to bring the data together and give our organization a view of the data. So we'll move on to the next section. So this is an example of once the data was broken down by Data Uploader, the relevant fields in this large data set were updated by Data Uploader. We could bring it down and give this is an example of our central area to see at a geography level of what is the status of the different units. It would alert us if we had possible delays. And from here, we could actually drill down into more specifics to see at the item level. Let's move on to the next slide as well. So we could actually drill down into the item level to see which units could be delayed, what is going to be on time, and then what is the overall status of our inventory at a SKU level. This was really, really powerful information for us that, again, we were trying to manually manipulate through spreadsheets and multiple emails and phone calls. And this now was a process that takes probably less than 2 minutes daily to import the file into Data Uploader, and automatically all of these other dashboards get updated instantaneously. So it's without having actual real-time interface to all of these systems that reside for our different planners, we can get a daily snapshot of the status of our inventory. And it has pretty much been a game changer for us in terms of understanding where we are and the availability of our inventory.
That's great, Brian. Thank you for that. We'll come back in a minute here about some best practices and some of the results you're seeing. But how about if we segue over to you, Bruce, and talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced at Karyopharm in dealing with clinical trial data management?
Sure thing. Thanks for the opportunity. Here at Karyopharm, we're dealing with patients and patient data. So the data really is our lifeline to our patients. Without it, we have a team of medical monitors who would be essentially flying blind, trying to monitor patients from all over the world. And our monitor team is based in the US and Israel. So really we needed something where we could sort of pull everything together. And the system we had was using a Smartsheet for monitoring, but it was a manually entered process. That was the way they decided to do it on day one. I came in sometime around day 90, and this is what I inherited. So time-wise, trying to get all this data in there was taking myself and another person about 1.5 8-hour days. So we're talking 12 to 15 hours every day trying to get the data in. And when I say every day, I mean literally we're getting data every day. So what that's doing is it's taking us away from other tasks that could be done. It's taking me away from analyzing the data, looking at the data. It's taking somebody else away from the jobs that they could be doing that will be better for patients than us sitting around all day entering data. And when we're talking about this and we're trying to get out there as fast as possible, this can lead us to rush, quite frankly. I think any of us who have ever had a task that we need to do every day and people are waiting on it will understand we want to get it done. So we're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. So that will lead to accuracy issues as well. And we have a system where our investigators are entering the data into our electronic data system. And we are pulling those. You can see some of the various Excel sheets that we try to pull from every day, find the data that we need, and then take their manual entry, filter it down, make our own manual entry, and we're talking about accuracy problems at that point. Even if I allowed myself a 1% error rate, which is about the standard that we are on, if we're doing 500 individual data points every day, we're talking about 5 errors per day, which may not sound like a lot, but on a monthly basis, we're looking at 125 to 150 different little errors every day. So that was another issue that we had, where our monitors were looking at potentially inaccurate data. Is this a spike or is it a mistake? So we have to go back, and that causes even more time as we have to go back and query with the sites. And also, the manual entry piece has a scalability issue. There's no way really to make manual entry bigger without adding more people or adding more time, which of course in the business world adds more costs. So all these things put together was really a challenge for us. And just as a quick aside, I was telling Jim we had a meeting earlier today about one of our studies that we're still doing manual entry on, and they had about 10 different points that they noted that were errors that I had never caught. So these were things that were obviously caught during the meeting, but we need accurate data to do accurate monitoring. So what Data Uploader has allowed us to do is similar to what Brian was talking about with his geographic things. We are able to take unique configurations for our studies, the data points we need, the endpoints that we're interested in, because we're collecting a massive amount of data on our patients. We need maybe a third of that on an ongoing basis. The other 2/3 are nice to haves, but we don't need the nice to haves in our monitoring system. So Data Uploader allows us to filter out and just get the data that we need, which allows for our monitors to work better, work faster, and make better decisions. It also allows us to automate the work process without having to go in and recode how we're going to split up and combine a number of Excel sheets. We are able to just make one massive Excel sheet from the various ones in SAS. That's my output. That's what gets uploaded into Data Uploader and filtered out in the manner you can see here in the picture. Also, like I said, accuracy, quality data is, again, I can't stress enough how important this is to us. Our monitors in Israel can't be in Poland every day to check on patients. We rely on this data. Honestly, I know I said it a couple times, I can't stress enough how important this is to us. So by eliminating any potential errors that we're going to make on our end doing manual entry, Data Uploader takes the data that's from our EDC system, takes it out, puts it into Data Uploader. I don't have to worry about the accuracy of it. I don't need to go back and do more than a spot check just to make sure everything is where it needs to be. And finally, as far as the monitoring goes, like I say, we need real-time notifications and alerts for our ongoing patient, our patient monitoring. Again, I'm going to just point out some are US, some are Israel. Israel is 7 hours ahead of us. So by the time I get in, I'm already sort of behind in getting them real-time information. With Data Uploader, we're taking that 1.5 FTE worth of hours, and dropping that by 2/3 at most. And I'm including the little programming piece that I need to do on the side, which has nothing to do with Data Uploader. The Data Uploader piece itself takes 30 minutes to an hour at most. And our monitors over in Israel will have the data that much faster. So really, it gives everyone quicker access to the data. And most importantly, and this is more of a general Smartsheet thing, but it does allow us to be more collaborative for our monitors in the US and overseas to work together to make better decisions. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to not only have a successful study, but we're trying to find the best solutions and for our patients. This allows us to do this quickly, allows us to do it more accurately, and feel better about our decisions at the end of the day.
Right there, Bruce. One of the questions came up, and I think you actually answered it in your last couple of points there, was the time that it takes. I mean, the typical upload time from Brett Gardner's perspective to do an upload is probably within seconds in terms of updates, but in your particular case, you're dealing with multiple worksheets, so it's probably taking a little bit longer. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, I want to circle back on that. Just Yeah, the data uploader portion itself takes a very short amount of time. Like I say, when Brett comes on, I'm sure he'll, like you say, it'll be seconds, and it's just that easy. For the most part, it's very quick. It's very simple. What I am saying, the full time, I'm talking about when I sit down and pull the sheets and then create the master CSV that's going to go into Smartsheet. So,
Yep.
Apologize for the confusion on that. The Smartsheet portion of itself is seconds.
No problem. So both of these examples are very illustrative of this idea of automating and converging, taking disparate data, improving accuracy. But let's take a step back and maybe, Brian, I don't know if you're still on or if you had to go to your next session.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay, great. Maybe what you could do is touch on a couple of these insights and best practices that you've experienced at Beckman Coulter, and then we can ask the same question of Bruce.
Yeah, so I think what we have learned through the use of not just data uploader, but also just Smartsheet in general is that standardization is key. Naming conventions and things like that, it helps you harness the power of being able to write reports that pull specific fields together from multiple sheets. We've learned that, you don't have to have the grandest idea at the beginning to have an immediate impact. And we've been able to start small and then grow from there, especially when it comes to the dashboard capabilities. If we map out exactly what we want to accomplish and take the time to think about this solution in a whole, it gives us the opportunity to really streamline our processes and bring it all together much more succinctly than just trying to jump in and take what used to reside in an Excel spreadsheet and just import it strictly into Smartsheet. So I would say for us, the lessons learned has really been geared around being thoughtful about the application and not feeling like we have to have a grand solution at the end. We can start small and build from there.
Good insights there, Brian. Bruce, how about from your perspective? What are some of the best practices or insights that you can share with the audience here today?
Sure. I mean, I don't want to repeat exactly what Brian said, but I think the key one was, like you said, starting small, getting those little victories, and working your way forward from there. And the one thing that we've actually found here is the more you think about those little things, the more use cases you're going to find in the company. This started off strictly as a way of getting clinical trial data to our medical team faster. And we have started to implement it in different portions as well, just because we found that it would be useful for us for pulling in the information from different sections of the company and from different databases and combining them into a larger sheet where we can see more information without having to have multiple sheets and multiple filters. It's that streamlining process is kind of getting everything into one area. But again, like Brian said, what you need is the naming conventions are extremely important. And using the filters to sort of whittle down your data is really one of the bigger parts of it for us. And the filters are something that we are using more and more of, just to try to assemble the data in a more user-friendly manner.
Yeah. Bruce, I know you pointed that out, and I'll just underscore that idea of using filters to cut down the amount of data, especially when you're thinking of the data that you're dealing with in terms of clinical trial data. That's a good way to manage that, and I think we'll see in the demonstration a little bit more about how those filters will work. Let's do this one last before we go into our technical demonstration. Maybe we could just touch on some of the benefits that you've realized here. I think some of these are relatively straightforward, but let's take maybe just a minute on this, and then we'll segue into the technical demo. Let's see, Bruce,
sure.
Do you want to kick it off there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say if you want to take the first one there, like I said, again, I think I I think I beat this point home before, but timely and accurate data, again, we couldn't survive as a company without it. I think most companies are the same. I don't think pharma is unique in that way. It's saving time, which at the end of the day saves money. And clinical trials honestly cost enough as it is. We don't need to find ways to spend even more money and to have more people in to do these things. So the automated portion of it, not only does it make it more accurate, but it's also a cost savings for us as a company.
Sounds great. And Brian, from your perspective, what would you say, if we could summarize some of the benefits that you've realized with this?
For us, it's really been a huge time saver. We can talk about the automation of this. People can rely on either real time or predetermined times of information being presented to them, and being able to aggregate it all together in a single view has been really, really the biggest benefit for us in terms of people spending time moving into multiple systems and trying to piece the data together manually. We've now been able to automate that and also bring it into a singular view. So all of this has resulted in time efficiencies, better customer satisfaction, both internally and externally.
Great. Okay, well, thank you both very much for those insights. And of course, as the audience here, you are more than encouraged to ask questions as we go through this. We're now going to segue into our technical demonstration, but before we do, we're just doing a mini poll for the audience here. We're asking you essentially, what are the operational data management challenges that you're directly involved in? And I think on this particular poll, you can select more than one answer here. This just provides us with some insights into that as we switch over presenters here to Brett Gardner. I'm going to leave this poll open for probably another 10 or 15 seconds, just so we can get the majority of you to respond, and we'll share the results and then switch over to the presentation here, the technical demo. So we're getting some interesting replies here, Brett. Actually, there's a pretty clear winner in this particular poll here. I'll be sharing it in a second. We've got about 2/3 who have voted. Wait till we get above 70%, and then we'll go ahead and close out our poll. And there we go. So close out, and let me share the results. And on screen, you should be able to see what we've got here. It's interesting. The operations is the clear 85%, 84% of you responded that it's operations data, which probably, when you think about Brian, in your particular case, managing the equipment availability, or even clinical trials, I guess you could somewhat say that's an operational data management use case. By far is the big winner here in terms of our poll. So we appreciate everyone sharing the results on that. I'm going to go ahead and hide this now and switch the presentation over to Brett Gardner, who's going to take the next 15 minutes or so and walk us through a demonstration of Data Uploader. All right, Brett, over to you.
Thanks, Jim. And thanks again for everyone who's joined the webinar so far. What you should all see on my screen is an example of a dashboard. Now, what I'm going to do for you all today is we're going to go through a scenario. So in this example, in this scenario, I am a systems analyst. And my job, or I have been tasked with from my boss, to gather insight and analysis results from 3 different systems. So I have a time tracking system. I have an inspection module that I have or calculate all the inspections that need to happen within my organization. I also have a sales pipeline. And this could come from either a CRM like a Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. Again, as Jim mentioned, as long as those systems export to a CSV, Excel, or even a Google Sheet, the data uploader is in play. All right, so let's go through each of these examples. So again, I'm the systems analyst. First task is, okay, let's export from my time tracking system. I've already done that. And this is just a deeper look as to what specific dashboard is going with this particular time tracking analysis. And moreover, here's the sheet connected to that dashboard. As you can see, it's empty. It does not have any data. So one thing I'm going to use the data uploader for specifically in this case is to get that data from my specific time tracking system. So Simply put, all I need to do is attach that CSV. Now, after I've attached that CSV, the data uploader will do the rest. So I'll give it a second here to finish the upload. But what we'll see here in a little bit is all of that time card information from my other system is going to be populated right into my sheet. As you can see, my data is oriented exactly the way that I wanted. So now that step is taken. So again, that arduous step that we all face in terms of migrating one piece of information from one system to the other has now been facilitated greatly by the data uploader, and more specifically, all of my reporting has been done. So my project dashboard has shown all of my results, and then I go all the way back up to the top, and I can see an overall reflection of one system's analysis. All right, so I'm a third of the way done. Now I got to do my inspections. Completely different system, coming from another source. So I went through the same procedure, and I decided to export that to a CSV. And now I'm going to go into that specific dashboard. So again, a separate analysis, a separate report of all of those violations or any possible violations, because those are important to track. You know, as Bruce can verify, if you're working in the medical field, you know, accuracy is important. So this is a little different. So the last example that you saw, there was just a blank sheet. There was nothing in it. But now I have data already populated in here, and I don't really want to affect that negatively. So data uploader can be used in two ways. The first way, it can be used to refresh the data or replace anything like an empty sheet or just start from scratch. This example is going to merge existing data. So I have data here, and I just want to update the sheet. So what we'll do here is we're going to attach same thing we did previously. We'll go ahead and attach that to the sheet, and then we'll let data uploader do the rest as we saw in the previous example. Now, the merge works in a little bit of a different way than the refresh. Now, the merge is going to look up an identifier. So if you've had familiarity with VLOOKUPs or cross-sheet formulas, we're going to use an identifier to make sure that that data goes exactly where it's supposed to go. So if I made any changes on this sheet, those changes would be reflected, but more importantly, the previous data I had remained intact. And all the data uploader did was just tack on the rest of the information so that the rest of the system or the rest of the process is not going to be negatively impacted in any way. So I have a system, I have a report completely set up that is completely accurate now, as you can see, without any of the work done or any of that tedious task that we need to do in terms of aligning or attaching all of those strings together. And more importantly, when I zoom all the way back up to the top, I get a good brief recount of what's been going on. So far, I had a pretty big task, right? 3 different systems, 3 different reports, and I'm already 2/3 of the way done. So lastly, let's do the sales pipeline. So my task here is to make sure that the CRM is being leveraged correctly, or making sure that the data being populated in that CRM is accurate or is trustworthy. So I'm using another export. That could be a Salesforce, that could be a CRM as long as it exports to a CSV. So I've done that already. We're going to dive into this particular example. So this is just another example of just a sales pipeline or something that I can create as a reporting structure. But again, there's data that needs to be populated. So when we go into another example, you can see that I have, roughly 10 or so opportunities in the pipeline, which is, I can read off the bat, that's not enough. I know there's a lot more in my organization. So we need to update this data. So very much like I did previously, we'll do the same motion, and we'll attach that export from the CRM directly into my sheet attachment section in Smartsheet. All right. So that's been completed. Jim, do you have a question?
Yeah, Stephen just asked a quick question here. Can the CSV upload be fully automated?
We've been known to do that. Out of the box functionality, the data uploader is the drag and drop, as you see. If you are interested in that, that would require an engagement with our consulting team, and our consulting team has built applications that listen for when information gets passed into a folder like an FTP. So we can automate that. That will be a little bit more of an implementation cost, but that is a possible thing.
And of course, we do have the scheduler that does the scheduling of them.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, the scheduler as well. I will walk through that.
Yeah, the scheduling is coming up here, Stephen. Pay attention to that one.
All right. So I'm done, essentially. I've exported 3 different documents from 3 different systems, and I've simply just dragged and dropped them into Smartsheet. And as you can see, the results are exactly what I wanted. So I have my reports, I have my prospects, I have everybody's opportunity counts. I see everything from a bird's eye view, and I can zoom out even further and get a better understanding of what has been going on. So in conclusion, what I've really done here is, even though I've been tasked as a systems analyst to do a report of all 3 systems from completely different locations or completely different architectures, I've used or I've effectively leveraged the data uploader to do all those reports in under 10 minutes. On top of that, I can trust this data. As Bruce and Brian have talked about, data integrity is very important with their organizations. So I didn't touch a keyboard in this case. I simply exported and placed it in the right location, and the rest of the data, or Smartsheet, did the rest of that. So in conclusion, the data uploader, or by leveraging the data uploader, has effectively empowered how I've gotten my work done within Smartsheet.
Great. Excellent. Let's do this. Thank you, Brett.
Do you want me to go into the tool?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
No worries. No worries. So what we saw initially with this demonstration, I'll be fairly brief. I know we're running up on some time. But what we saw was the topical. What looks from what does that upload look like from a cosmetic perspective or an aesthetic? And that's what we saw. But what about the tool itself? Because I know there's going to be a lot of questions around that and how that's organized. So I'm going to hop over to the data uploader, and you probably saw this or recognize it in some of the screenshots that you saw on the slide deck, but it is a back-end tool. And when I mean back-end, I mean whenever I need to create new workflows or edit existing ones, that's when I'll need to go into the data uploader. So what you're seeing here, every line item is essentially a workflow. And what we'll do is we're going to go into that inspections workflow that you saw. So as I go into this workflow, and as Jim specified earlier, there's no code here required. So essentially, when you go through this process, you'll select the sheet that you want to have updated or where you're going to attach all those sheets. And there was a question in there is, how do you specify which sheet is what? So one of the things that you can do is you can get very granular. You can say, I'm only listening to this specific name of a sheet. So if you wanted to get specific, you could do that. Or you could do what I did. Say, hey, the most recent document is what's going to be uploaded. Now, when we go to the target, this is where you have the option of selecting what type of action you want the data uploader to take. You saw the replace. That was, I have an empty sheet, or I just need to refresh the sheet. The merge is, I have data that exists, and I just need to update it. Now, one of the things that you can do that we didn't cover is if there is information that you need to clean, like old information that needs to be archived, you can also do that with the data uploader as well. And as I talked about specifically, when you do use that merge or when you do use the update, we will be looking at an ID column, and then we will be mapping the data. Again, what you're seeing on the left is the columns in the CSV or the Excel, and on the right, we're seeing the Smartsheet columns. So you have the ability to dictate which columns go into what in Smartsheet. And one of the things that you can also do is you don't have to map into every column in Smartsheet. You can have Smartsheet columns that are independent, that have formulas running in the back end that are calculating all that information being populated. And lastly, as Jim talked about, if I want to automate this on a schedule, I can create my own custom schedule. So if I wanted to run it every Monday at 8 a.m., every hour, I now have turned on a schedule where the data uploader will listen to my sheet attachments and run automatically at the given time that I have dictated. So that is one workflow that we walked through, and that concludes the technical demonstration. So hopefully you guys all saw what it can do from a Smartsheet or from an aesthetic perspective, and what you can learn from in terms of a back end and tool perspective. So thanks again.
That's great, Brett. Thank you very much. What I'm going to do is I'm switching back here to my screen. We've got a number of questions that have come in. Just let me know when you can see our screen here. And let's get into those questions and answers. One question I'm getting a lot of people asking is pricing. And unfortunately, what I have to give you as an answer, it depends. It depends. We have a couple of different pricing options, which one is a limited number of workflows and then unlimited workflows. And then there's also a dependency on there's 3 levels of company sizing. So long answer there, but the short recommendation is when you get the survey at the end, just indicate your interest in getting that specific pricing information, and we will definitely get that to you as a follow-on to this session. Let's see now. We've got several different questions. There's questions about using this environment along with other tools like, say, Tableau and Power BI. And the specific question was, for the client presenters, do your companies use any other dashboard visualization tools like Tableau? If so, what do you like about this approach over those tools? And maybe Bruce, I might pose that question to you. We haven't talked about that, but are you using something like Tableau or Power BI for any visualization, or are you relying principally on the Smartsheet dashboards and the overall worksheet convergence that you've got there? Bruce, comment on that?
Right. Sure. We don't, as a matter of course, use Tableau or Power BI. Mostly we are using the dashboards in Smartsheet, like you say. Every once in a while, I will export some data and run it in Tableau just on my own, but it's not like a normal course of business. Like I said, most of what we're doing here is just within Smartsheet itself. We found the capabilities there and dashboards and what we can do to be plenty for us. Like I say, if I want something very specific, if I want to do it a certain way and it's easier for me to just export it into Tableau and do it there, that's one thing. But just as a general business model, we are pretty much using the dashboards that are available in Smartsheet.
Excellent. And kind of tying along with that question, Joanne asked a question about, are the graphs and charts that we're seeing all Smartsheet out of the box, if you will, or is there other program that's being used for those graphs and charts? Brett, you want to?
Yeah, so the dashboards are a separate piece to the data uploader. Essentially, dashboards are available in Smartsheet with the business plan and above. Mm-hmm. So if you are using Smartsheet and you don't have dashboards, you are most likely on the team plan or below, or the individual plan. Mm-hmm. If you'd like to be upgraded, you can contact our pretty much anybody here, and they'll direct you in the right spot. But dashboards are plan-based, where the data uploader is product-based.
Just a question on filters tab on the data uploader. Just quick, you want to do and just cover that?
Yeah, I just kind of skimmed over that, and I know that was pointed out. What that really enables me to do is implement my own filter logic. So, for example, if I don't want to bring in information with this specific medical representative or this sales rep, I can say, hey, don't bring in this person. Mm-hmm. And that filter logic would be applied. So when I imported the data from data uploader, that person or that line item would not be imported along with the rest of the data.
And I think, Kelly, that addressed your question too. You're asking, again, the limitation of 5,000 rows. Is there a way around that? And that's, again, why the filtering plays such a key role. And you can apply those filters on a workflow by workflow basis. So you could have various different views based on those filters, if that makes sense what I'm saying there. I've got time for one more question. Brett, is there a question you're seeing on there you want to address?
I got a very interesting technical one about Zapier. So I understand that it sounds like you're using Zapier to add an attachment to a row. You also have the ability via API and with Zapier to attach it to the sheet as well. So in this case, if you wanted that Zapier integration to work in conjunction with Data Uploader, you would simply add the attachment to the sheet section rather than the row, and everything should be good to go.
Oh, great. Could we show the filter real quick if I bounced it back to you?
Yeah, of course.
You have a request to actually visually see it.
All right.
So we'll bounce back. What we're going to do is, as we answer the questions, we do have a request to actually show the filtering. So we're going to go ahead and do it.
All right.
Let me know when you're ready, or if you're ready now.
I am showing on the screen, and this is the filter. I don't have anything on here, but as we talked about, I can create and construct my own filter logic. So if I wanted to do 2 different filters, again, I have that own filter logic. So if I said I just want 1 or 2 to filter that out. And again, how this works is essentially by column value. So if I wanted the date to be, greater than a particular, like today. So if I just put in, or what's the date today?
Today's the 24th.
24th. 19th.
All day.
There you go. Yeah. So example there would be I'm filtering that out. So now everything underneath that will not be taken in. And that's just an example of what you can construct. Or if I want it to be a lot more granular, I could just say, you know what, I'm doing 1 and 2, so that it needs to meet both of my criteria upon import.
Perfect. Max, you asked a good question here. Let me try to give a stab at it, and then Brett will clarify it for me. And Max's question is, I want to clarify, I am only able to upload CSV and XLS files into Data Uploader. Is that right? I can't upload Access databases into it. And I think that's actually correct, Max. The one thing I would say is that I believe Access has the ability to export out to an XLS or CSV format. And so that's the additional step that you would do there, and then that would serve as your upload. Brett?
Correct. Yeah, it's not, the data uploader is not a hard integration with a system and another. There is the step of exporting to the CSV initially. Think of data uploader more as a soft integration between Smartsheet and again, any system, as long as it exports to CSV, Excel, or Google Sheet, then you have the data uploader will be an ideal solution.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we had a packed house here today. I want to, first of all, thank both Brian Vaughn and Bruce Warren, who joined us from our customer base to talk and talk a little bit, a lot, about how they're deploying Data Uploader, the challenges they faced, and the benefits that they're significantly realizing. I'd like to thank all of you in the audience for all these great questions and interactivity. We're running out of time here, so we can't get to all the questions, but please do indicate in the survey following the webinar if you have further interest in more information. We'll get back to you, and we'll address the questions in the FAQ that follows on in this actual webinar. Also like to thank my colleague here, Brett Gardner. Brett, thank you for taking your time out and sharing your terrific insights.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks, everyone.
And we look forward to doing more of these use case webinars. If you find these helpful, please indicate a 5 in your response on the survey. That helps us build the case to have not only technical demonstration, but actual customers who are solving complex business problems using the Smartsheet work management platform. With that said, it's Jim O'Farrell here. I want to thank you all. Have a great day. Enjoy this 24th of April, and we will see you at our next webinar next month. Thanks, everybody.